Like a quick introduction as usual, just to put things in perspective in case we have someone like joining for the first time. What we're doing here is a journey that we started a while ago um, through the khutbah and through this Sunday class. It's a journey that we called it that basically uh, the journey of rediscovering our religion, the rediscovering Islam, and rediscovering the original Islam or the true Islam, with the idea in mind that no Muslim should ever feel that he or she has the absolute truth and they know their religion very well, well enough that they don't need to make any effort to learn more or to deepen or broaden their understanding. So, and starting from the fact that at least people in this class, they subscribe to the idea that the existing versions of Islam are they don't they're very different from the original message that was preached by Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Even though they look exactly the same in appearance, in terms of beliefs and in terms of rituals and fiqh, what is lawful and what is unlawful. But in terms of the results or the transformation that the original message has done in people and in the world, and you compare it to the situation now, there is no comparison. We have a version of Islam that transformed few dozens of people and turned them into champions of a great civilization and leaders and who changed the world and the course of history in the span of one generation. That's the original message. And we have a message nowadays that is embraced by a billion and a half, and they are largely irrelevant. They are largely irrelevant in the world. Their contribution to the world is very minimum and they are very marginal. You cannot. There is nothing you can do to convince me that these are the same engines, yeah, or the same product. Yeah. There is no way. Yeah. So we started this and. We came a long way in terms of accepting that Islam is a paradigm that is very compact and very intertwined, and it is based and built on the very strong foundations, and those foundations were shaken, and that's why the whole thing collapsed or crumbled. Now, when everything is crumbled, everybody picked up some pieces and said, "This is Islam." Of course, some pieces are very common, but everybody picked up some pieces and made their own version of Islam. That's individuals or groups or whatever. But nobody was able or thought about that this is not how it works. We need some sort of reconstruction. Need to reconstruct that paradigm and put things in perspective. There are things that are essential in Islam, and there are things that are add-on. You cannot mix and say everything is the same at the same level of importance, and it can't work like this. And the best way probably to make that journey is to make a journey of studying Quran, is to have to embark on a journey of studying the Quran. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that, I mean, there are a lot of them. A lot of blunders happened in history of Muslims. Of course, the political stagnation when Muslims accepted in the name of peace and stability and security, they gave up their freedom and accepted to live under totalitarian regimes, and they were inherited like everything else. That was very bad. It started there. And then there was the intellectual stagnation when Muslims decided that we have enough ijtihad, or we have enough intellectual material or products about Islam that we don't need any more. We don't need to keep making ijtihad because we have great scholars who produced great work. So that's it. We can stick to that forever. That was a huge mistake because it runs against the essential idea of Islam, that this religion, because the text is fixed and life is evolving, the only way it can keep guiding life and informing life is through continuous renewal and revival and ijtihad and intellectual creativity. And we have seen how Umar ibn al-Khattab, and just few years after the death of Muhammad ﷺ, was making ijtihad about the things that were in Quran as text. Yeah. That was the second thing. And the third, I'm out of many. The third was the idea of the work that was great work was done by Bukhari. Nobody can discount that, but it's a human effort and was elevated to be made sacred. And so people started to say that if there is if something is in Bukhari, then it must be correct. And even if it is not, even if it violates some principles in the Quran, fundamental, we have to find a way and we have to find an interpretation or explanation. There is no need for that. There was absolutely no need for that. It was much easier and much more logic to say that the work of Bukhari and Muslim, etc., was great work, but it was a human effort, so it's not infallible, and therefore it should be evaluated against the Quran, not the opposite. And we should never say that every hadith there has to be accepted, and we have to find a way to justify it, and we have to find there is no reason for this. That's and then of course we took the hadith and the sunnah above the Quran. That was very bad, so that obscured the Quran. And then the books of heritage or Turath even became our sources, not even the sunnah, which not even the Quran. And you can find people who have read some books of Turath or the heritage, and they know them very well, but they did not make equal effort to study the Quran or the Sunnah of Rasul. That's a big, I mean, that's a lot. That's it's basically comes to a mutilation of this religion when you do all of this to it. I mean, that's why, and I don't like the idea that there are people who are conspiring against Islam, because the amount of conspiration that the conspiring, the conspiracies that was made by Muslims against Islam, unintentionally maybe, but was even more than anybody can do. I mean, it's a self-inflicted conspiracy. So that's what we're doing, and we're walking through the Quran and stopping in some fundamental verses, which we saw a couple of them last week. Verse 102, 103, 104. These are very fundamental. And then verse 109, verse 110. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. And I believe these are some of the verses that people have to learn first thing when they come to Islam, to be along other verses, to understand that this religion is essentially a mission, and that you know what you're committing yourself to, so that everything else will fall in place. After that, you know that a lot of things that you need to do are meant to help you and empower you to fulfill your mission to the best of your ability. Also, another fundamental idea in this journey is that the Quran, a couple of things actually. One is that the Quran has that very delicate or very had the challenge to balance between being very relevant to the Arabs at that time, to the context in which it was revealed, and to continue to be valid for all times and all places, and relevant for all times and all places. That combination has to be always in our mind, so that we understand we can leverage this Quran, and we should not confuse between what is a principle in Islam and what are contextual verses. That's not something easy, but there is avoiding it can be a big problem. We should not. So we need to always, especially those who are going to embark on ijtihad, they have to keep this in mind, that this religion had that this Quran, this guidance, it's a fixed guidance. Life is evolving. It was meant to be very relevant to Arabs at that time, or the context in which it was revealed. You cannot tell these people things that they don't understand or they don't know. At the same time, it was meant to be relevant and valid for all times and all places. The only solution to this problem is that there are verses that are foundational and principles, and there are verses that are contextuals. And we have to sort which is which. The other thing is that the role of the Quran is to build, reinforce a vibrant relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a book of Tawheed. Make no mistake about it, Quran is a book of Tawheed. It is meant to always strengthen and reinforce your relationship with Allah from different angles. It's a multi-dimensional relationship. It's not 3D or 4D. Allah has 99 names and attributes. So it's a very multi-dimensional, and Quran works on every dimension. When you embark on the study of the Quran, you find yourself working on every dimension and every aspect of your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's one. Second, Quran is meant to illustrate and clarify your mission and remind you that you are someone who is on a mission that you committed yourself to, and therefore Quran in several places explains that mission, explains in different ways. And third is to build the individual and the community for that mission. That's what the Quran is about. That's what the life of the Prophet ﷺ was about, because that community was cemented not only by the guidance, but also by the action. As we will see when we cover the Battle of Uhud, the amount of lessons that Muslims have learned from that battle, basically they are priceless. I mean, if they won that battle, it wouldn't be as useful as, of course, one should not wish for defeat, but it would not be as useful for cementing that community and solidifying it and sorting it out as the lessons that they learned from the defeat. All right, so we are at verse 110. We finished. We started verses 110 and then finished actually 110, and then we are at verse 111. So just to remind you, the verses from 102 to 104 and the verse 110 are basically, they have a blueprint telling us what is our defining mission, and there is a blueprint on building the community and the individual for that defining mission.
I'm sorry, what book are you in?
I'm in the Quran, chapter 3, verse 102 to 104.
Thank you.
Sure. And then 110. So it's a chapter, it's Al Imran, Surah Al Imran, or chapter 3, and then these verses. We have said that in verse 110, after defining the mission, says وَلَوْ آمَنَ أَهْلُ الْكِتَابِ لَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُمْ مِنْهُمْ مُؤْمِنُونَ وَأَكْثَرُهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ, reinforcing the idea that this mission is not for an ethnic group. This mission or this community is everyone who embraces this mission becomes part of that community and qualifies for that status. So there is a kind invitation for the people of the book at that time to do this. That after saying that the community who embraces this mission has special status and etc. And then in the same verse there is an invitation, وَلَوْ آمَنَ أَهْلُ الْكِتَابِ لَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُمْ. So it was an invitation to be as a people of the book, that you know that you have been assigned this mission. This is the last version of or edition of God's revelation, and therefore you are invited to be part of that community. Now, Quran very fair, say some of them are believers and some are not, and then goes to say again, keep in mind Muslims were at that time very intimidated because they were very strange to this idea of religion. They were not this, so they are outsiders, considered to be outsiders. So Quran is empowering them not to be intimidated. لَن يَضُرُّكُمْ, so those who refuse and even decide to fight you. Quran is telling Muslims, لَن يَضُرُّكُمْ إِلَّا أَذًى وَإِنْ يُقَاتِلُوكُمْ يُوَلُّوكُمُ الْأَدْبَارَ ثُمَّ لَا يُنصَرُونَ. So after the invitation to come and join the community, and then saying some accepted the invitation or some joined and some not, then say if the people of the book had also believed, it would have been better for them. For although some of them do believe, most of them are lawbreakers, they will not do you much harm, even if they come out to fight you. They will soon turn tail. They will get no help. Again, this is very contextual verse. We're talking about at that time, the people of the book more than likely in Medina. So, which took very hostile approach to Muslims and to the new community. So nobody should take these verses out of context and generalize them. ضربت عليهم الذلة أينما ثقفوا إلا بحبل من الله وحبل من الناس وباءوا بغضب من الله وضربت عليهم المسكنة. So again, empowering Muslims or encouraging the community that you should not be intimidated, you should not be afraid. What does it say? Unless they hold fast to a lifeline, they will get no help. If they come to, even if they come out to fight you, they will soon turn tail. They will get no help, and unless they hold fast to a lifeline from God and from mankind, they are overshadowed by vulnerability wherever they are found. So that applies. That's not special to any people or any community. It says basically, whoever does not hold fast to the rope of Allah will have this this outcome or these consequences. Vulnerability wherever they are found, because basically if you are not relying on Allah, you are on your own. And then just to emphasize that the approach of Islam, it's not like Muslims are privileged or chosen people or anything. No, it's a belief. It's a set of beliefs and missions. If you fulfill them, you become part of the community. If you don't, then so it to explain that. And before anybody goes far to think that this is because of who they are, no, Quran brings us always, it's because of what they do. ذلك بأنهم كانوا يكفرون بآيات الله ويقتلون الأنبياء بغير حق ذلك بما عصوا وكانوا يعتدون. It's amazing, Quran, in reinforcing and emphasizing this idea. It's about what you do. It's not about who you are. It's about what inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. It's open field. There is no inherited privilege, and there is nothing to be taken for granted. It is it's a fair competition. It's an open field, and then and you only have yourself to blame. If you choose wrong, then you only have yourself to blame. If you lose Allah's help and protection and guidance in this life, or if you find yourself in trouble on the day of judgment. Quran keeps emphasizing this over and over again. It's always, whether it is a good thing or a bad thing, whether it is a compliment, or it's always because of what you do. So before anybody goes far and start stereotyping or generalizing, ذلك بأنهم كانوا يكفرون بآيات الله ويقتلون الأنبياء بغير حق ذلك بما عصوا وكانوا يعتدون. They are overshadowed by weakness too, because they have persistently disbelieved in God's revelation and killed prophets without any right, all because of their disobedience and boundless transgression. Every time Quran talks about anger from God or punishment, it's always justified. It's because of what people do. Every time Quran talks about the blessing or victory or help, is always conditional also by what you do. ليسوا سواء من أهل الكتاب أمة قائمة يتلون آيات الله آناء الليل وهم يسجدون يؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر. This is the third time أمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر from verse 104 to verse 114. In 10 verses, it was mentioned 3 times. أمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر. وأولئك ويسارعون في الخيرات وأولئك من الصالحين وما يفعلوا من خير فلن يكفروه والله عليم بالمتقين. As usual, Quran, it's not a wholesale approach. This is individual response. So it's Quran talking about that among those people, they did not take the same stand or the same attitude towards this message. So ليس سواء. It's 115. But they are not all alike. I love this. I love Quran when it throws and go to details to avoid this wholesale generalization, or they are not all alike. There are some among the people of the book who are upright, who recite God's revelations during the night, who bow down in worship, who believe in God and the last day, who order what is right and forbid what is wrong, who are quick to do good deeds. After saying the bad people and because of what they have done, and saying no, but they're not all alike. There are some who are upright, recite God's revelation during the night, who bow down in worship, who believe in God and the last day, who order what is right and forbid what is wrong, who are quick to do good deeds. Now, some scholars, and probably most, who say that these are the ones who embraced Islam. The verses are not explicit about this. They're not clear-cut, at least. And probably it's, I mean, Quran could have been explicit about this, but it says they're not all alike. There are some people of the book who are fighting you, who are attacking your beliefs, who always try to shake your beliefs and try to divide you. That's one category, and he's talking about another category. Bottom line for us, what is the good news is, because we are not responsible to judge people, we don't really have to worry about it. We just take this as that these are good characteristics that Allah, the Quran, is inviting us to do them. I mean, it's not, rather than saying, okay, is Quran talking about some people of the book who are still worshiping and or who embraced Islam? I don't think that matters for us. Well, and I don't think we can ever reach conclusive results. I think what matters for us is that Quran, in one of those styles, is telling us about some characteristic or some things that we need to do that Allah loves us to do. So it mentioned for us this way: Iman billah wal yawm al-akhir, qiyam al-layl, praying at night, reciting the Quran, amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, yusari'una fil khayrat. So look at the different approach. This is a different school. There is one school that will spend the whole session today about that subject. Is Quran talking about people who became Muslim, or people of the book who continue to worship and doing these things? And we can have endless debates about this and discussion, and it can turn into division, it can turn into takfir, it can turn into, and we get nothing out of it. And all of this was not our job to begin with. Put that aside and take the other approach. This Quran is trying to build me for that mission and to bring me close to Allah and to tell me what Allah likes and what Allah does not like. So in these verses, he's telling me these things in that style. I don't care about those people. I don't care about whether those people have embraced Islam and Quran is talking about them as Muslims, or these people continue to worship, and I don't care about this. It doesn't matter. I can live with any one of them because it's not my business. It's not my issue. My issue is that Quran is praising those criterion. I try to match them. I try to pray at night. I try to recite the verse of the Quran regularly. I try to strengthen my belief in Allah and the Day of Judgment and take it from the level of acceptance to the level of yaqeen, level of certainty. I try to do amr ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, enjoining that which is good and forbidding. I try to compete and try to be the fastest and the best in doing good. ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وأولئك من الصالحين. And I'm going to focus on the message, not on the vehicle. The vehicle that Quran delivered that message to me was talking about the category of the people of the book. That's the vehicle. What matters for me is the message itself. The message is Allah likes these things. So let me check myself against them. And if I'm missing one of them or some of them, I'm going to work on these. That's how we should approach the Quran. وأولئك من الصالحين وما يفعلوا من خير فلن يكفروه والله عليم بالمتقين. وما يفعلوا من خير فلن يكفروه والله عليم بالمتقين. And they will not be denied the reward for whatever good deeds they do. In other words, leave this alone, leave this for Allah. They will not be denied. the reward of whatever good deeds they do. Allah knows exactly who is conscious of him. Allah is so explicit in the Quran about this idea of you should steer away from judgmental attitude because it's none of your business. So clear, reinforcing this over in different ways. And this, Wallahu وَمَا يَفْعَلُوا مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَلَا يَكْفَرُوا وَلَا يَكْفَرُوا. Who is going to deny them or does not deny? Allah, not you. وَمَا يَفْعَلُوا مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَلَنْ يُكْفَرُوهُ وَاللَّهُ عَلِيمٌ بِالْمُتَّقِينَ. Because Allah knows and He will judge them. And because you were not assigned to judge them and because you don't know. So stay away from this. It's not your job. It's amazing how much Quran emphasizes this idea and how we Muslim drifted into this idea of sitting down and then deciding who's the Muslim, who's not Muslim, who's the believer, who's gonna go to hell and who's gonna go to heaven, etc. Even though Quran repeatedly is telling us to leave this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna ladina kafaru. Again, whenever you see ladina kafaru, couple of things we have to, first of all, kafaru in general means people who were presented the message of Islam in the best possible way with role models and decided to reject, and these are not many in the world. That's one thing. Second, it has a lot to do. It's partially contextual. At that time, alladina kafaru are not people who left Muslims alone. They use, I mean, almost interchangeably used. Those who rejected, or Quran when it talks about alladina kafaru, talks about mainly about those who decided to fight this message, not those who minded their own business and left it alone. Inna ladina kafaru. And then the other thing is, whenever this ladina kafaru is mentioned in Quran, always talks about what Allah will do to them or with them, and never left it for us. Inna ladina kafaru lan tughni anhum amwaluhum wala awladuhum min Allahi shay'an wa ulaika ashabun nari hum fiha khalidun. I don't know how more explicit than this it could be. As for those who disbelieve, neither their possessions nor their children will help them against Allah. لن تغني عنهم أموالهم ولا أولادهم من الله شيئا. If they are counting on their possessions or their power or whatever, that this is going to help them, no, it's not. So tell them that it's not going to help you. And then they will be companions in the fire, there to remain. Who are they? That's not our job. It's not our job to develop the list. Allah does not need our help. And we are not even equipped to do it. We are not qualified, we're not equipped, we are not assigned. And then, still talking to them directly. مثل ما ينفقون في هذه الحياة الدنيا كمثل ريح فيها صر أصابت حرث قوم ظلموا أنفسهم فأهلكته وما ظلمهم الله ولكن أنفسهم يظلمون. Whatever they give away in this life will be nullified. A frosty wind strikes and destroys the harvest of people who have wronged themselves. It was not Allah who wronged them, they wronged themselves. Again, Allah is telling us to convey this message for those who refuse or decide to reject. That not only nothing is going to help you on the day of judgment, but even in this life, you can lose the blessing of Allah, the protection, etc. Just convey this message to people and leave them alone, because your job is a witness, not a judge. لتكونوا شهداء على الناس. Witness will tell people what you have seen. what you have read, what you have understood of the message, and then leave them to be the judge for themselves and leave Allah to be their judge. Themselves, by making the decision, they will be the judge, and Allah will judge them. But that, and then to reaffirm this and the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that at the end of the day, whatever is going to happen to them in this life and thereafter, first of all, it's none of our business. And second, it's because of what they have done. Because Allah doesn't, because they wronged themselves, or because that's the choice. If they make this choice, they have to know the consequences. And your job as a prophet or as a follower of the prophet is to convey this. So these are the choices. If you make this choice, that's what you qualify for. If you make that choice, that's what you expect. And it's your call. And your job ends there. مع الرسول إلا البلاغ. مع الرسول إلا بلاغ. And then إنما عليك البلاغ وعلينا الحساب. إنما عليك البلاغ وعلينا. 5 words. I think in Surah Al-Ra'd. 5 words. إنما, exclusively. Prophet Muhammad, your job is to deliver the message, and stops there. And then judging people, that's exclusively for Allah. إنما عليك البلاغ وعلينا الحساب. يا أيها الذين آمنوا, back believers, preparing, strengthening, drawing their attention to some areas of weaknesses, etc. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتخذوا بطانة من دونكم لا يألونكم خبالا ودوا ما عنتم قد بدت البغضاء من أفواههم وما تخفي صدورهم أكبر قد بينا لكم الآيات إن كنتم تعقلون. Now talking about another category of people that you as a community have to be aware of them. And these, it starts by saying that you who believe, do not take for your intimates, very close friends, such outsiders as spare no effort to ruin, want to see you suffer. Basically, Quran is telling Muslims you shouldn't be naive. You shouldn't be naive to take someone as close friend and to trust someone who are conspiring against you. As spare no efforts. لا يألونكم خبالا. They're not even just working against you. These people are so passionate about working against you. They spare no effort to ruin you, and they want to see you suffer. Of course, that makes a lot of sense. Who's going to do this? Who's going to take people like this as close friends? Yeah. Their hatred is evident from their mouths. وَدُّوا مَا عَنِتُّمْ. It's just pay attention. It's their hatred is evident from their mouths. But what their hearts conceal is far worse. So these people, they hate you so much that they cannot even conceal it. And what's coming out, facial expressions or words, is very bad. And what they conceal in their hearts, it's even worse. And then قد بينا لكم, we have made our revelations clear for you. Will you not use your reason? إن كنتم تعقلون. This is very logic. Community has a mission. You have, you know that this mission runs against the interests of many privileged groups. So you expect oppositions. You expect people who are going to fight you, and you have to be careful. You have to be careful on whom to take as an ally, and you shouldn't be naive to the point that you trust people who are conspiring against you or fighting against you. ها أنتم أولئك تحبونهم ولا يحبونكم. ها أنتم هؤلاء تحبونهم ولا يحبونكم. This is how it is. Here you are. You love them, but they do not love you. That's naive. That's really naivety. وتؤمنون بالكتاب. You believe in all the scriptures. كتاب كل كتاب means not only the Quran, all the revelations, in all the scriptures. And when they are alone, bite their fingertips in rage at you. وإذا لقوكم قالوا no. But when they meet you, they say we believe. When they meet you, they say we believe. But when they are alone, they bite their fingertips in rage at you. Prophets say, die of rage if you wish. Die of rage if you wish. God knows exactly what is in everyone's hearts. So again, talking about category of people that they may try to deceive you. When they meet you, they say we believe. And then basically you have to be aware and you have to be awake. And you shouldn't be naive. And then of course strengthening believers, قل موتوا بغيظكم نضع عليهم بذات الصدور, that no matter how much they hate you, no matter how much they conspire against you, at the end of the day you have to be confident in what you're doing and in your message, and above all in the support of Allah, because Allah knows what's in their hearts and what the hearts of everybody. And Allah is, if you qualify or meet the conditions, you should expect the help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Back to this category of people. إن تمسسكم حسنة تسؤهم وإن تصبكم سيئة يفرحوا بها. I mean, that's as bad as it can get. I mean, these people, they spare no efforts to ruin you and want to see you suffer. And then now is telling us that they grieve at any good that befalls you and rejoice at your misfortunes. That's as bad as it can get. And of course, and you cannot take these people as close friend or trust them. So what's the solution? وَإِن تَصْبِرُوا وَتَتَّقُوا لَا يَضُرُّكُمْ كَيْدُهُمْ شَيْئًا إِنَّ اللَّهَ بِمَا يَعْمَلُونَ مُحِيطٌ. وَإِن تَصْبِرُوا وَتَتَّقُوا لَا يَضُرُّكُمْ كَيْدُهُمْ شَيْئًا. But if you are steadfast and conscious of God, their scheming will not harm you in the least. Allah encircles everything they do. God encircles everything they do. So very strong message for believers that you just keep doing what you're doing. You do the right thing. You remain steadfast in this path. Again, there is no mentioning of this is what you should do to these people. Just don't take them as close friends. Be careful. Be aware of their conspiracies and what they're doing. But don't be afraid, because if you do what you are supposed to do, because the word tattaqu, it's not just the spiritual part. Tattaqu means you do what you're supposed to do. If you do what you're supposed to do things right and do the right thing and do everything you can, and you remain steadfast, they will not harm you. And on top of that, you have to remember that Allah encircles everything they do. Now, up to here, this was good introduction to the Battle of Uhud, which was going to start from verse 121. So I will stop here for now, and then if we have time, we can resume. But just to tell you that in Surah Al Imran, chapter 3, starting from verse 121, we start the second big chunk of this verse that is talking about a very important turning point in the history and the life of the Prophet in the Sirah, which was this Battle of Uhud. because so many things happened in this battle. So many principles were reinforced that they are priceless. And unfortunately, some of them, up until now, Muslims do not really apply them, or are not really, do not appreciate the great lessons that were learned in this battle. So stop here for now. If you have questions or comments about what we covered, and then we will resume, whether today or next time, inshallah, talking about this second part of the surah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
There is like this ayah, laysu sawa, they are not equal. This is like one of the great measures that Quran established or put in the basis of understanding of Islam. I mean, if you apply this, there is no people better than others. I mean, what you do, that we have to look at what they do. We cannot just look at this sect or this people or this group are bad. No, some of them can be good, some of them can be bad, and we can apply that to ourselves, to our, if we are Sunnah or we claim we are, then some of us may be harming the Islam, others may be benefiting the Islam. So what sometimes I really get hurted when people say, oh, this is just Shia, and put them to the side. You cannot even listen to them. This is really against what Islam establishes, or Quran establishes, I would say, in this ayah and other ayat. Also, there's a lot of, I mean, if you apply this, you can apply it to Sahaba themselves. Some of them worked very hard and they were really sincere. Others, we don't know, because Quran says some of them has problems. And it could be, some of them could have good intention, but what they did, maybe something wrong, because they are a human being. So this measure is really a great thing. And I mean, I cannot just say enough about it. And we should always think about how to look at about people using this, which is, people are not equal. Some of them can be good, some of them can be bad. But generalization is totally wrong in looking at a group or a sect or something. Allahu A'lam. Thank you.
As you said, we cannot emphasize enough that the Quran, time and again, is telling us two things that unfortunately we miss them totally. One, it's for people, it's about what they do, and two, it's between them and Allah. It's not who they are, it's what they do. When you're a Muslim, there is nothing special about you. There is nothing special about you. It's not a birthright. It's about what you do. It's about what you do. It's about everybody. And that applies to everybody. It's about what they do. And then who is going to judge that and evaluate that, what they do? It's Allah. So it's very unfortunate that we come to two major ideas and concepts and principles that were emphasized over and over in Quran, and we miss them totally. We fall in that judgmental attitude, and then we start categorizing people about to what sect or to what group they believe they belong, and make those generalizations. It's about what you do, and it's between you and Allah.
Brother Muhammad, were you talking about verse 113? لَيْسُوا سُوَاءً مِنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ.
Yes, that verse. Did you hear me, Ayman?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Ghannouchi, can you explain in at the end of verse 117, وَلَكِنْ أَنفُسُهُمْ يَظْلِمُونَ? What is that form of self, I guess, I don't know, if the right translation would be self wrongdoing or self, bad consequences to one's self.
Which one exactly?
I can't hear you well. What's that?
Which one exactly?
That's verse 117. Your voice is muffled, Dr. Ghannouchi. I don't know if you're close to your phone or what's going on.
Is it better now?
Yeah, right now it's better.
Much better now.
Oh, okay. So what's going on here? Let's see here.
It just happened. Your voice muffled in the last 5 minutes, but we were hearing you off and on.
I don't know how to make.
Maybe the headphone was losing charge if you're using
Oh,
headphone.
Okay. Now it's better, right?
It's
now it's
clear,
better.
yes.
Okay, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, so
All right.
at the end of verse 117, وَلَكِنْ أَنفُسُهُمْ يَظْلِمُونَ, I just want to understand what is the form of basically ظلم النفس, or how can you explain the self, I guess,
Anytime
consequences.
anytime you do something wrong or you fail to do what you're supposed to do, you are inflicting harm to yourself, because the whole idea here is the emphasis that there is nothing people can do or will do to harm Allah, or that Allah needs from them. So that's out of question. So what you do good is for yourself, and if you do something wrong, it's against yourself. That's the idea that was emphasized over and over in Quran and Islam in general. It's inflicting. If you are told about what you are supposed to do and you fail to do that, or if you are warned against something that is harmful and you choose to do it, you are inflicting harm on yourself. So that's the idea.
Okay, thank you.
If there is nothing, if I may share with you this book and this author, if you guys okay with that, brothers and sisters.
Yeah, please.
Okay, well, let me share screen where there's some information. So what I'm talking about, a French author, his name is Eric Geoffroy. It's written like Jeffrey, but it's actually Geoffroy. Do you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the author. He's a French author, and he became Muslim at age 27. That means maybe 30 years ago or more, because he's 60 something these days. So he did a lot of searches and a lot of books about Sufism, but the book that actually attracted my attention is different book, which is about what happened in the Islamic history, and he's talking about very similar transformation, similar what Dr. Ghannouchi talking about. He's saying there is something happened to the overarching goals of Islam. It was great in the beginning, but then something happened. The thing that happened, the people became more looking at the literal meaning, not at the values of Islam. This is a great research. And this it's not available in English as far as I know. It's in French or in Arabic. It was translated here to Arabic. This is PDF, and this is the book. It's the future of the spiritual Islam, and he's talking about future of humanity, not only for Muslims. He said what Islam has, the characteristics of spiritual Islam, will be able to solve the problems of the modernism and after modernism. And it's a great research. If you guys, I recommend everybody to read about him. There's some few papers, and this book, if you have time and you can download this book to your computer. And his name is Eric Jeffroy. Again, this is the name in Arabic, Eric, and it's written like Jeffrey, but it's not Jeffrey, it's Jeffroy. It's because it's French. I think Sheikh Ismail can correct me if I'm wrong in how we say in it.
I couldn't see exactly the name. Maybe the screen is not that.
Can you see it now? Okay, let me go back to the other screen here.
So even Sheikh Suhail, he knows French.
Yes, but we need a second opinion. and it's a way to make you talk. to hear, yeah. I hear some, how you say it in French?
I think Jeffroy is saying yes.
Jeffroy, okay.
Jeffroy is.
Have you heard of him before?
This is my first time.
Oh, okay. He talked about Ibn Arabi and Al-Amir Abdul Qadir. And yeah, he has a lot of researches, actually, a lot of books.
MashaAllah.
Yeah. I mean, if you go here.
What is the message behind his latest book, Muhammad? What does he say? It's helpful to Islam and other religions and humans.
Yeah, well, he said what happened to Islam actually happened to every single religion, which is transformed from the spiritual original copy to different copy, the copy that has hierarchy and new, like a religious or clergy that will look at things in different way than the original. And he's saying we have to consider Islam as if it was revealed to the Prophet, our beloved Prophet Sayyidina Muhammad. It should be, you should have the same experience. If Islam is revealed to you, the same thing. There's a lot of, it's a great research. I mean, I didn't read the whole book, but I start reading it. I recommend everybody to read it and learn about it, and maybe we can discuss something about it.
Definitely. Jazakallah khairan. I do have a question. And my question is like, you were talking about the tafsir of the Quran and how it's responsibility for everybody, and how we were mixing between Sunnah and the Quran and the mix of culture and other. But what's the influence of the Mufassirun from other religions and taking it from other religions? Like there is a lot of what they call Israeliyat to translate or to interpret Quran. And if this has to do anything with ayah 118, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tattakhidhu bitanatan min dunikum. What's the meaning of bitana here? Is it only for people that you hang around with, or it's as well like the trust for others? Thank you.
Okay, the first question, yes, there was a lot of things that were unfortunately found its way to the tafsir, and to we have to be very, very careful. And I always say, by the fact that we are still at this point relying on tafsir or interpretation of the Quran that was made many centuries ago, that's a failure on our part, because we should have kept this fresh all the time, and we should always produce fresh understanding and fresh interpretation, etc., that will help us achieving the overarching goals of Islam, while sticking to the constant and to the thawabit and things that do not change. It is a big problem. I mean, even the books of tafsir and the books of hadith, there are problematic to begin with. But what came after is even more problematic. When there are other people came after that and start taking those human effort and elevate them to become sacred. That you cannot discuss anything in Bukhari or anything in Muslim or Sahih, the Hadith, or you cannot, who you are to debate or discuss the tafsir of Ibn Kathir, tafsir of this or tafsir of that. That's very bad, because that's elevating human effort and to the level of making it sacred, which is not. And there is a very famous statement saying أنت حتناقش البخاري يعني أنت يعني are you gonna, and there is another thing, are you gonna discuss things in the Bukhari book? That applies only to Quran, yeah. And then or people will say that the Bukhari is the most authentic book after the Quran, as if they are the same category, and just one came before the other. No, that's totally wrong. So we have to be careful, very careful about when we read tafsir, and we have to use our minds and reflect. I always distinguish between reflection and thinking and giving fatwa. Giving fatwa, that's you have to become scholar. You have to be someone who's knowledgeable. At least if you're not scholar in general, at least scholar in that particular subject. You did your homework, you study it inside out, and you maybe. But the reflection, trying to extract guidance and meaning from the Quran, you tell me that we have to freeze our mind and we should not be doing that. That's bad. That runs against the teaching of Islam. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. Bitana are not people you hang around with. Bitana are people you take as very close friends. You trust them, you tell them everything, and even your intentions or your plans, etc. And these people are your enemies. And it's not even the staunch enemies. They're not even regular enemies. There are people who want to see you suffer, and there are people who spare no efforts to ruin you, and people who, when something bad befalls you, they are happy, and when something good happens to you, they something good, and they're mad. These you don't take them as close friends. So bitana is people who are confidant or allies, or there is a level of trust, there is a level of closeness, and that should not be the case. You should be awake, take precautions, but of course that's not going to give you the right, because in Islam we know that you have to be fair, even with people you don't like, people they don't like you, people who transgressed against you before. That's all of these were mentioned as no reason. There should be no reason for you to be unfair. You have to be fair with everybody. Those who are close. There is a verse in Surah An-Nisa: كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين أو الأقربين إن يكن غنيا أو فقيرا فالله أولى بهما فلا تتبعوا الهوى. يعني all the reasons. Your parents, yourself, people who are powerful, people who are weak. These are not reason for you to be biased. So you have, even if somebody is weak and you are so compassionate with them, you have to be fair, and then you can find a way to help them. But not because they are weak, you become biased. Or if someone is very powerful, still. And then in other verses say even people who you don't like, or they hate you, or they transgressed against you before, that still is not a reason for you not to be fair. اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى. So, but again, you are aware of, you have to be aware and awake and take your precautions. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in the first years in Medina, the amount of human intelligence that he did, that unfortunately many books of Sirah, they don't even mention them and nobody pays attention. The amount of intelligence, human, because there was no technology at that time. It was only human intelligence. The amount of human intelligence that he did, scouting the Arabian Peninsula to find if somebody is about to attack or about conspiring or anything, it's an amazing story of leadership here. This is a newly emerging community. It is a community that is strange to that environment, because that's the only community that is not tribal, that is built on a mission, that people who are joining it becoming very strong and very passionate. So a lot of people were worried about them. So the Prophet ﷺ was not sitting down while working internally on cementing that community, engaging the environment in Medina, and ended up with establishing that constitution that is based on citizenship, basically. And then scouting the environment. That's the level of awareness and awakeness that the Quran is inviting us or commanding us to. So you are aware of people who are conspiring. Yeah, you don't take them as allies or trust them. Just be careful.
Assalamu alaikum.
Keep in mind that at that time, many members of the community were still very much attached by family relationships to the people in Mecca and by business relationship to the people in Medina, to the Jewish tribes in Medina. So, I mean, and there is, again, it's not because the problem is not because they are Jew or anything. It's we're talking about the tribes in Medina that decided to fight this message or to conspire against it. And the same thing in Mecca.
That's a very interesting point you bring up, Dr. Anushi, about the leadership of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in gathering information. He was basically very aware.
Very proactive.
Yeah. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna give the message and leave everything to Allah. He took a lot of steps, and it was very proactive.
Inshallah, we talked about it one time, and I have some write-ups. It's much more than that. It's first of all the brotherhood among the Muhajirin and Ansar. That was a miracle. It's not miracle. I mean, it was an amazing achievement. It was an amazing achievement in a tribal society between Aus and Khazraj, who were two tribes fighting each other forever in Medina, and then between the people who the immigrant or the migrant and the Medina people, and then engaging those tribes, trying to find a way, etc., and ended up with there is a constitution. And in this constitution, in this city of Medina, it's based on constitution and citizenship. Everybody is a member of this community and have equal rights, etc. It's an amazing constitution. And then engaging the environment. And then even some important, significant economic development steps that were made to make this community have some financial independence and financial strength. So inshallah, one day we'll talk about it. The leadership of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, it is probably one of the most unknown piece in his life, of course, and in his life, as we did with Quran and as we did with Islam, as we did with everything. We leave the essence and we focus on the margin. So out of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, his
worship, quality and intensity of his worship. Who is focusing on that? When we mentioned, we have in mind that's just the Prophet. Yeah. His character is impeccable. وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Who is focusing on that? Who is trying to emulate, to be like the Prophet in their interaction with people? I don't know. 2, his dedication to the cause. From the day he was commissioned as a prophet until the last minute, every day he will talk to everybody who's willing to listen. And he was not discouraged or intimidated by all the kinds of response he got, and all kinds of harassment and rejection and etc. Who is among Muslims who appreciate that and think that you as a follower of Muhammad, you should be someone who is on a mission, who is fulfilling it the same way. And then his leadership, the leadership with which he built that amazing, one of the most successful movement of change in history. It did not happen by miracles. It did not happen. It was not made for him just because he was a prophet. There was a leadership model that Muslims have to dissect and to understand. And it's great, and its greatness is in its simplicity. Nowadays, we came up with all kinds of structure in our community centers and mosques, etc. And we are yet to find something efficient, even though the original model was amazingly efficient and amazingly simple at the same time. And part of it is going to be, we're going to cover it in next verse, inshallah, because in the Battle of Uhud, there were some very important leadership characteristics of the Prophet that were reinforced, because there was a battle, and then Quran was revealed to give the lessons, what happened and why, and what are the lessons learned. And we will see how some key aspects of the leadership of Muhammad ﷺ were emphasized in this chapter, in the surah. And then, if you are interested, the last verse of Surah Tawbah, you will find the characteristics of the leadership of Muhammad ﷺ in one verse. لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ. That's Surah 9, chapter 9. And the verse is the last 2 verses. Actually, the verse before last. قَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ. He feels your pain, and he is harisun alaykum. He wants the best for you. He wants to see you in the best possible. Bilmu'minina ra'ufun rahim. So we'll see in the Surah Al Imran and in the verse of Surah Tawbah, which is chapter 9, verse before last, the characteristics, among other places, the characteristics of the leadership. We know the verse that was mentioned a few times in Quran that has the job description of Muhammad ﷺ, that's something else. يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِي يُزَكِّيهِمْ عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِي وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمْ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ. That's job description. The characteristic of the Prophet, he's a role model and his mercy. You want to be like Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, you're claiming to be a follower, you try to be role models, exemplary, and perfect everything you do and every role that you have, and then try to be mercy to people around you and blessing, whether as individual or community. Leadership, we'll see the characteristics. فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ فَاعْفُ عَنْهُمْ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. It's an amazing, in one verse, encapsulates the characteristics of the leadership model of Muhammad ﷺ.
Sorry, one more small question, and maybe it's big, but it's related to what you're talking about, the way I understand it, which is the concept of ثقفوا or ثقفتموهم. How you understand this concept? Is it, can I say that it's intelligence or it's something else? I'm sorry for interrupting.
I'd rather have it, we'll address it, inshallah, next time, but met them, basically you find yourself face to face. Or you discovered, you discovered it can apply, it can go both ways, but I'd rather look it up first, and then we'll cover it more details next time, inshallah. فَقِفْتُمُوهُمْ, you met them, or you discovered what they are planning or they are preparing for you. But mostly the first one.
Before we go, I just want to mention there's someone in our group that is having a procedure very soon. So if you can keep them in your dua, that would be great. Jazakumullah khair.
Inshallah.
Mr. McIntosh, Hugh, do you have any inputs you would like to share with us? I know you join us every several weeks. We'd like to hear from you.
No, it's just good to be back and meet old friends. And I'm constantly struck by the work that you are doing as Muslims in Islam to the work that we're doing as Christians in Christianity, the idea of going back and really understanding for Christians who Jesus really was and what he meant versus the community that grew up around him and tried to institutionalize his teaching and so forth. We just really need to go back to the origins of our religions. And I think this is what Ahmed was talking about with this French writer, that going back to the spirituality of the religions as they began and what really inspired the leaders of the religions and the prophets, and how that has become misinterpreted and weakened and in some cases flipped around completely.
Right.
Totally, yes, exactly what the writer Eric Joffer said. And he actually applied this to different religions, not only to Islam. It's to him, it's like a rule. It happens in every religion.
All right, if there are no more questions, I will use just a couple minutes, just quick introduction for next week. We're talking about, inshallah, we're talking about from verse 121, almost all the way to the end, about this important incident event. It was really a turning point. Battle of Uhud, it's basically came after the Battle of Badr. Probably third year of after migration. It was a revenge. Quraysh, people in Mecca gathered a huge army, and they were going to Medina to finish this new community and this message. Again, it's like the first time. Even in Badr, it was self-defense. I mean, the battle was imposed on Muslims. They were not. They did not ask for it. They went after the caravan of Abu Sufyan because they were stripped of all their wealth and all their possessions and houses, and that was totally. It was horrible thing to happen for them. But then it was the leader of Mecca, Quraysh, Abu Jahl, who insisted on fighting. And then in Battle of Medina was even more obvious because they came out and Muslims heard about the army has left Mecca already or is in its way, and then they were deciding what to do. Number of things happened in discussion. Should we go out and meet them out of the Medina, or should we wait and fight, have a street fight with them? That was a debate and discussion, and then there was a decision taken. We're going to talk about that. Was very important thing that reinforced the decision-making process and leadership and consultation and execution. It's an amazing, simple incident, but so many lessons can be drawn from it. And then in the way, there are groups who went back to Medina, decided to let Muslims down, basically. Was it bad? Yeah, it was bad. That was about 1/3 of the army. But in the great scheme, it was good because it sorted out the community. This is community that has a weakness. It has you think that you have 1,000, well, you only have 700 or whatever. Sorting out the community is a blessing. Is not, even though on paper or in appearance looks bad. And then what happened during the battle itself, the first part in which Muslims were victorious, and why they ended up losing the battle, and what are the lessons learned. And that was probably one of the biggest event when it comes to building a community for that mission, because building the community, it doesn't happen only by theory. It's like when you take a course, there is a lecture and lab, that's the lab. There is a lecture where Quran is revealed to you, and you're sitting down and trying to understand. But there are life lessons, there are experiences that you go through, and then you learn from them. And that's Quran has always done this. After every major incident, there is verses that are revealed to tell exactly this is what it is, that's what happened, that's why, and that's what you should learn from this for the future. So that's in a nutshell an introduction, and we'll go into details inshallah next time.
Thank you, Dr. Noshi. I think
Jazakumullah.
Jazakumullah khair for everybody.
Allah. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.